South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is responding to controversies surrounding her forthcoming book. Well, this morning, Esme Murphy spoke with Noem about the story of killing her 14-month-old dog and the account of meeting North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un, the Trump wave in 2016, as well as the pandemic and much more. Take a look.
Well, Governor Noem, a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
You too.
I want to ask you.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
I want to ask you about the dog. It's gotten so much backlash, so much publicity. I actually have a German wire-haired pointer that's 5 years old. Not the easiest breed. Left alone with some chickens, I'm not sure the chickens would survive at all. Why not give the dog away?
Well, I've already addressed this in several interviews. So this was a very dangerous animal. I was its second chance. It was killing livestock and attacking people. So this was a story from 20 years ago. And the reason it's in the book is because I want people to know that, I tell the truth, that I don't run away from the truth, and that I don't run away from making hard decisions. This book, No Going Back, that is going to be released tomorrow, that I wrote, is filled with stories. It's filled with decisions and hard challenges that I faced in my lifetime, but it's also a blueprint for the average American citizen of what they can do to get involved in government and politics. At the end of the day, I'm a mom and I'm a grandma, and I've chosen the safety of my children over a dangerous animal, and I want people to understand that that was a very difficult thing for me, but that also what we need in this country is we need people to start talking to each other and having civil discourse. One of the things that's happened in America is that America has loved to be offended. They love to be offended by each other, and they get mad and angry and yell and don't listen to each other. And I don't think we get good policies.
Well, this
when that
incident,
happens.
though, Governor Noem, has offended just about everyone. Even Newt Gingrich has said he thinks it's disqualifying for you to be the vice presidential nominee for Donald Trump. President Trump reportedly is upset with this. Does that surprise you?
Well, I think these are exactly the same people that you're mentioning that criticized me during COVID. They're Republicans and Democrats that criticized me for not shutting down my state, for not closing businesses, for not mandating masks and vaccines. Instead, I trusted my people, and I gave families the flexibility to make the best decisions for their families and their businesses that they could, and I gave them all the information that I had. So I'm used to being criticized. That has happened to me when I've made decisions, and we'll go through some of that in this book, but I think people need to understand that this book is for the average American that's living out there that wants to know, is it too late for me and my voice to be heard in government politics? Is it so corrupt that there's nothing I can do to make sure that we still protect America and keep it as special as it's always been? And this book, really, every chapter lays out a couple of quotes and a few stories and input, and then at the end of it, it gives instructions for the average citizen of your phone call makes a difference when you call an office. Your email makes a difference.
Governor, no, I want to ask you
to start talking to people that you haven't talked to before. I want to ask you, though, Governor, about one of the anecdotes in your book about meeting Kim Jong Un, the president of North Korea, and you say that it was clear to you that he underestimated you. Well, apparently you didn't meet Kim Jong Un. It has to be taken out of the book. What were you referring to, and were you mistaking him with somebody else? No, I've already addressed this, and I've traveled the world. I've worked on policy for over 30 years, met with many world leaders. Many are in the book and many are not. And so when people read this, they'll understand that my background and my experience on a farm and ranch and running businesses, my experience serving in our legislature, in Congress, and then now as governor is all experience from which this book comes. And it's incredibly important that people remember that the most important person in politics, no matter what anybody tells you, is them, and that if we lose this country, where will we go that it's any better? That there isn't anywhere that protects our way of life more than that.
You write a lot about 2016 and being able to see the wave that was going towards Donald Trump. And one of the things that you write about Donald Trump is that you admire his shortcomings. What did you mean by that?
I love that he doesn't pretend to be something he isn't. He's just who he is. That's one of the things that typically when somebody announces that they're going to run for public office, the first thing they do is they go put on a pair of jeans and stand in front of a barn, or put on a hard hat and stand in a manufacturing plant, and they try to pretend that they're just like everybody else out there, but secretly they think that they're a little bit better. Secretly they're thinking that they're the smartest person in the room and that they know better than anybody else. That wasn't Donald Trump. When Donald Trump announced he was running for president, he came down a golden escalator, which was very strange, and I don't think any campaign consultant would recommend it, but that's who he was. And I think the reason that he was so willing just to be himself was because he doesn't think he's better than anybody else. He doesn't think he's better than an engineer or a doctor or somebody who works in a warehouse or somebody who drives a truck for a living. And that's refreshing, and that's why he resonates with the American people, is because he embraces who he is. He goes out there and fights every day, and he fights for the average person that lives in this country and recognizes that they need somebody who gets up and thinks about them every day.
I want to ask about your COVID policy since you brought it up. I actually looked at the deaths per 100,000, comparing South Dakota and Minnesota, which was very much a lockup state. Things were closed here. And in 2020, 71.9 per 100,000 people died in Minnesota of COVID. The figure for South Dakota in 2021 was much greater than that, 127. What do you have to say for that?
I'm not sure what data set you're using, and I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not certain what you're referring to as far as demographics. And what I would say is that my state has been highly successful because of the policies that we've approached, and we protected their constitutional rights and their freedoms. I don't believe that governors, according to the Constitution, have the authority to close businesses. That's a taking of a business, which governors don't have the authority to do. And the number one thing that we as leaders need to do is to respect our Constitution and the oath that we have, that we will uphold it. And so I think Minnesota made some wrong decisions during COVID. Many Minnesotans have moved to South Dakota because they know that in our state they get respected, and that their freedom will be respected, and that will help them be very successful. We have less taxes, less regulations. We allow people the opportunity to make decisions over their children's education and have school choice options that you don't have in Minnesota. And most of the time what I hear out of Minnesota is that people are wondering how we can annex part of Minnesota into South Dakota because they wish they lived in a state like we have. We've been growing like crazy because hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people have been moving into our state because they want to have the kind of lifestyle and the freedom that we have.
Quickly, you've been really one of the leaders nationwide in talking about banning TikTok. You were the first state, I believe, to ban it on devices, state devices. Do you think the federal government needs to move forward on that? And if so, what do you say to the people in South Dakota who might have a small business that depends on TikTok?
You know, I'd say TikTok is a dangerous platform because it's owned by the communist Chinese. I think that it's a powerful tool, that it is something that is owned by people that hate us and want to destroy America, and we were the first state to lead the nation in banning it on government devices. But dozens of states after that followed our lead, and the federal government did ban it on devices as well after we took action. So consistently, over and over again, South Dakota has led the way on difficult issues like that, just to make sure that we know that we have to be a country that puts American interests first. And so if TikTok wasn't tied to the communist Chinese and they weren't using it to undermine our way of life and our value system and how our people think, it'd be a different story. But it cannot be on government devices, and we've made sure we've taken action in our state as well to make sure that China can't come in and buy up our farmland either. The Chinese government does not like the United States of America. They have a plan to become a world dominating power, and what's standing in their way is the United States of America. So they'll use every tool that they have to undermine our way of life and to destroy us.
Well, Governor Noem, thank you so much. Your book, No Going Back, is available everywhere as of tomorrow, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it too.
Noem told CBS News that she thinks President Biden should shoot his dog too. Well, you can read more about that at WCCO.com.